Okay, so this is going to be the first entry on this channel for our recent backlog series, where we go back and do the most recent games of series that have already been reviewed. Technically, Kingdom Hearts Remind was part of the backlog series, but we're just going to ignore that for the sake of everything else being special. First thing on the chopping block is the DLC for Mario and Rabbids missed so long ago. Like most Ubisoft games, the story DLC for Mario and Rabbids was advertised many months before it was released, and all I knew about it at that time was that it was going to be Donkey Kong related, that was going to be set apart from the Donkey Kong content that was actually in the main game. Well, it finally did come out a year and a bit ago, and we're going to take a look at what the Rabbid team came up for that additional $15. Mario and Rabbids had a frankly great setup for DLC, since all they really have to do is have the Rabbids mess around with that teleportation washing machine, and it'll make the rest happen on its own, which is precisely what happened after Rabbid Peach caused a predicament when she tried to charge her phone in the outlet on the washing machine. Well, it wasn't just that. The washing machine was left alone for a long time after the main game finished, and Rabbid Kong found it, so he ended up breaking it, and it sucked him into it and everybody around him, and it just so happened that Goggles Rabbid from the main campaign happened to be there at the same time as malfunctioning to give the entire mess an encouraging blast from his dimensional glasses, to end up making a bullshit stew that ended up sending Rabbid Kong and Rabbid Peach to another plane of existence. Rabbid Peach immediately met up with Rabbid Cranky and Donkey Kong to be her new party members as they try to sort out the rise of the Rabbids in their dimension. To be fair to the DLC, it plays exactly the same as the main game. It borrows a lot of enemies from the main game with little added that's different, along with the level design and the same mechanics. Peach is the healer, Cranky is the sniper, and DK is the tank. You won't be picking up anybody else since the DLC is only about 4-ish hours long, which means the DLC is a bit higher priced than what it should be, but it also isn't that terrible. I'm saying that the market that would like this DLC are people who really like the main game and wanted more of it, since this is just more of Mario and Rabbids. After the dust settles in the first battle, Rabbid Peach has to go around the DK world to find Rabbid Kong and get pieces of the washing machine back in order to repair it and go home, while also fixing the Rabbid problem with her new friends. It's a bunch of fights that get steadily harder, and the same mix of box pushing puzzles from the main game do break up the turn-based battles. There aren't a lot of different objectives here, so it is just a succession of pushing through the enemies in order to get to the other side, and I don't really remember the AI being all that interesting or memorable, so it ended up just being a bunch of enemies all over the place. Go nuts. That's kind of the thing with this DLC. There's not much to write home about here, since nothing in the DLC is anything that you haven't already seen from the main game. It has the same combat, the same level design, the same ideas, the same strategies for most of the trip, the same humor, and the nonsense plotline. It wasn't really the best idea to make Rabbid Peach the main character for this DLC, since Rabbid Peach doesn't talk, and when she does, it's mostly a nonsense gibberish crossed with young people talk written by 50-year-olds. The most standout part of the pack is the final boss battle with Rabbid Kong, since that battle is hard as nails. He's a huge Hulk with infinite defense that requires the player to get the 3 points on this huge arena in order to disable his defense, and then after that he's got a huge health bar anyway, so even then it's not a guaranteed win. And since Rabbid Kong is a huge boss, he also gets the ability to clear these huge distances across the arena, while you as the player have to deal with limited movement. And whenever he catches up with a character, Rabbid Kong also can dish out huge damage and knockback, which forces some hit-and-run tactics that only barely work. Maybe the real answer was sticking everybody together the whole time, since Rabbid Peach is the only character that has healing abilities available for this long, drawn-out encounter that ended up being really annoying. I really wish I had more to say about this add-on, but that's the problem. Everything that it does is stuff that I've already talked about in the original review. The game that had a good turn-based battling system tied to an older franchise that's already past its prime and had no need to be revived in the 20-teens. What made the Rabbids popular was a thing that only existed in the mid-2000s. Every single joke in this whole game is just random nonsense like bananas or hitting things with plungers. The Rabbids world is constant non sequiturs and gibberish attempting to be funny without any comedic timing or setup. Most of the comedy of this game feels awkward and is a colossal waste of time. And unfortunately, this game is trying to be a comedy when it's not, being a turn-based shooter. The story of this entire game makes no sense and doesn't even try to. And since the Rabbids never talk or have any intelligent thoughts in their head or care about anything that's happening around them, I don't care about them and can't get invested in the game, and I just don't give a shit about anything that happens in it. The turn-based shooting can be fun since there is challenge there, and outsmarting the enemy in a rough fight is the reward for being good at the game, and it feels fun to be that powerful. But without any context to put the battles around, then the good gameplay ends up serving nothing, since the players aren't going to care about what happens to the characters after the fight ends if their plot isn't intriguing. And it's not. The Rabbid Kong villain isn't even doing anything, he's just sitting around, kind of just watching all this chaos happen and also not caring. They shouldn't have returned, since the world that wanted this type of humor has left and gone for other memes and jokes that will also fade in a few years to be replaced by other things the future internet deems funny. What should have happened when this game was being planned is that if Ubisoft wanted to partner with Nintendo this badly, then it should have come up with some original characters and tried actual joke writing, since actual jokes that don't rely on references or memes are timeless and therefore could have been funny at any time. I don't know who the hell at Ubisoft thought that resurrecting the Rabbids, the characters who are famous for putting plungers on random bullshit as their idea of a joke after the last few years, was a good idea, but it should have been shot down by some creative lead during the early collaboration meetings. That didn't happen, so now we have to live with the Mario and Rabbids game constantly taking breaks from the shooting action we're there to do, to point at something random and failing to convince us to laugh at it. Sure, the game was fun, it's animated well, and the Mario characters are decent at the very least, but at the end of the day, who the hell is going to care that Rabid Peach is stuck in another dimension? Who even remembered she existed 10 minutes after this game was over? Even I'm surprised that I was that harsh on the Mario and Rabbids DLC. I remembered enjoying my first few hours with the game up until that slog of a final boss, but I guess once I started breaking down what the DLC was and what it contained, I ended up realizing that this add-on did not provide much of anything beyond the stuff that the original game already had. There was no selling point to this DLC other than the Donkey Kong characters, and those characters didn't speak or generally care about their world getting invaded. Since none of the characters cared about the world falling apart, I also did not care and just wanted the DLC to be over. The shooting was fun, but that's all the DLC ended up being, a few more shooting strategy sections dotted about a snooze fest of this new dimension. It's an expensive trip, since this pack was still being sold at the premium content price of $15. Thinking that it was invaluable cannot be missed action when in reality, it's just an excuse by Ubisoft to spin other people's money around using the classic IPs of Nintendo. Unless you are somehow a die-hard fan of this game, then don't buy it. It's not worth the cash.